individuals just like you dealing with their own journey from loss to growth, along with mental health experts, growth guides, all with the purpose of helping you heal better, improve mind, body, and spirit, and finding your purpose from the loss and tragedy that unfortunately you have experienced. Hi, I'm Tom Pacello. I'm your host. I'm a growth evangelist, founder of Growth Through Grief, as well as being a fellow widower. I lost my beautiful bride of 19 years, Judy, some 5 years ago. Today, I've got a very special guest. My guest today is Carly Paige. She is a culinary nutrition expert, and she's a chef. She's founder and president of FitLiving Eats of Winter Park, and they're a concierge private chef company. She's the author of a great cookbook, a best-selling cookbook, Simply Swapped Every Day. It's a lifestyle guide and includes over 75 simple plant-powered recipes that can be customized to any dietary preference. And the book is literally on the counter in my kitchen. And my daughters, Carly, they reference it all the time. So I've seen it out a few times as they're whipping up some concoction in the kitchen, usually involving chia seeds or something similar. Through FitLiving Eats, Carly hosts corporate web workshops. She hosts regular cooking classes for companies like Four Seasons, NASA, Southwest Airlines. She's been seen on Fox 35 and other news and lifestyle programs. And one of these days, we'll have to have her host our widowers group for a great and healthy cooking event. So, Carly, we're hoping to do that with you. Today, we're going to leverage her nutritional and cooking expertise to discuss something really important, the importance of food and diet in the healing process. Carly, welcome.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you so much for having me. And I am super excited to dive into that topic with you and talk more about the healing powers of food on holistic health, no matter where we're at in our different stages of life.
Absolutely. So our diets can definitely dramatically affect our healing. You know, as widowers, we're already stressed. We've likely been dealing with that stress for some time, whether it's through the disease process that's occurred or after the loss. There's increased anxiety for ourselves and others. Perhaps, many of us have a depressive state that we go through. Talk about the impact of diet and what that can have on your mood and your body as a result.
Absolutely. While I have not gone through the same grief process, I do have a history since I can remember of dealing with pretty debilitating anxiety. So I can relate to some of those symptoms that we all kind of find ourselves dealing with from time to time, depending on where our circumstances are. I found that for me, when I started to shift my diet, it really increased mindfulness around other areas of my life as well. But food was the one thing that we're always thinking about. We can control what we're putting into our body, and it feels kind of safe, meaning we're comfortable around the topic of food and eating throughout our day. So it's just kind of a natural first step in creating more mindfulness and awareness around what you're putting in your body. And as it relates to healing and anxiety and reducing stress, food really does have the power to heal. And I don't know that I recognized that until I really started looking at food in a different way. And kind of reframing the way that I perceived food and paid attention to how it made my body feel. So specifically when talking about some different dietary focuses, one thing that we're always hearing is stabilizing our blood sugar levels. And we can do that with food. And the importance of that is really to avoid that big energy high and then crash and burn, which can, really feed into those feelings of anxiety and stress. Another big one is focusing on gut health, which I know we're going to talk more about later on, but there's so much research now around the connection between our gut and our brain and our mental health and the connection between the two. If one's healthy, then you're setting the other up for optimal health. So, in our gut, we're producing a lot of hormones, specifically serotonin, which is that feel-good hormone. So focusing on gut health can really have a direct impact on your feelings and your mood throughout the day.
Yeah, the food that we eat is fueling our system, and it really is medicine for the body. And I think that there's a lot of doctors now that are really waking up to this. Unfortunately, medical practices have had, out of the thousands of hours of training that doctors receive, I think the traditional track that many of the experienced doctors have gone through is maybe 4 hours of nutrition. But when you think about it, food has such an amazing influence on our health. Too much sugar, and you get these spikes and crashes, like you said, which if you're already in a stressed or depressed mood can put you into that depression. For me,
absolutely,
yeah. For me as well, Carly, if I eat gluten, even though I don't think I've got an allergy to gluten, but I don't feel good. I get inflamed by it, and not a severe inflammation like someone with maybe celiac disease, but it makes me feel lethargic. And if there's one thing you don't need while you're already feeling sad, while you're already perhaps in a depressed mood, is having your body inflamed and your joints hurt and your fingers swollen and it's already hard sometimes to get out of bed when you're in a grief process, much less being inflamed. And that just makes it that much worse to get out of bed.
Exactly. Yeah. And to a couple of points that you brought up, which were really great. One, sugar. So I think a lot of times people think about sugar as just being a dessert. But anything that's higher in carbohydrate. So with carbohydrates, you've got simple carbs and you have complex carbs. Complex carbs come with fiber attached to those carbohydrates, which means that your body does not process those carbohydrates as it would a simple or more processed carb. So you want to focus on whole, nutrient-dense, fiber-rich carbohydrates, because what happens is when you eat a high-carb food, like, say, a bagel, you don't necessarily think of that as eating sugar, but you are, because there's no fiber in that, and you're maybe getting, let's say, 30 grams of carbs that your body is just processing as it would sugar. So you're still going to experience that high and then the crash and burn and ebb and flow of energy throughout the day.
Yeah, totally agree with that. And as you said, so some of the simple carbohydrates, the ones that you want to avoid would be, like you said, bagels. Potatoes do that for me. I don't know if that is something that you consider a simple carb in there. What are some examples of the complex carbs, which are the good carbs, right? And then the simple carbs, which are the ones that we probably want to do less of.
Right. So complex carbs are going to be your fruits, your vegetables, whole grains, beans, legumes. Everyone is a little bit different in how food affects their body. So some people thrive on a higher carb diet that's done the right way, fueled by fiber. Other people do better on a lower carbohydrate diet with higher protein and higher fats. So that's where really paying attention to your own body and how it feels as you're eating these foods is so important. But generally speaking, those are the kind of complex carbs that you want to incorporate into your diet, which will weed out those more simple carbs. And when we talk about simple, just think about processed carbs. So anything made with white flour. White flour is extremely processed. All of the nutrients are stripped from that grain. So anything that could go into, it could be cookies, it could be bagels, it could be cupcakes, it could be pizza dough. I mean, there's a lot of different ways that can manifest in our food. And then, of course, sugar. So anything with cane sugar, even the more natural sugars like maple syrup, honey, agave, they're better for you, but they're still sugar, and we want to be mindful of those as well.
Yeah. So one of the things that I know a lot of widower brothers fall into, and I definitely fell into this through the disease process, was we use food, we use alcohol binging sometimes as an escape, right? Talk about the impacts of this and what you recommend to break the cycle. How do you wind up eating better and drinking better?
Yeah, I think that when we are going through a really tough time in our lives, I think period, we rely too much on our own willpower.
Hmm.
And when we are in a vulnerable state, like going through grief or going through an intense battle with anxiety, trying to rely on just ourselves is going to set us up for failure, not just physically and how we're feeling, but emotionally as well, because it just reinforces that idea that we're not doing enough for ourselves or we can't do enough for ourselves. So,
Hmm.
really relying on other people in your life to hold you accountable and become that accountability system for you, I think is really key in making those changes and just speaking to them your desires and your goals so that they can check in on you and see how you're doing, not from a place of if you're not meeting your goals, then you're failing, but just someone who really cares and can go through that process with you. So I think aside from, the really practical changes that we can make in our diet, really relying on that relational power that we can lean on when we're going through such a challenging time.
Yeah, and I think in that, definitely trying to give yourself some grace, right? You're
Hmm.
already beating yourself up a lot of times in regrets or things that you wish you would have done differently through the process. Give yourself some grace on the food. Give yourself some grace on the
Absolutely.
alcohol. But do think consciously about some of these shifts because it's really hard to heal if you're binging on the wrong foods. They're just not making your body feel well. And we'll talk about the gut biome in a second and some of the direct impacts it can have on your mind and your moods. And then two, if
Hmm.
you're indulging in alcohol, which I had an issue with, Carly, it can really mess your metabolism up to the point where you're not mindful, you're not lucid, and you're not going to heal because it just keeps you in this loop of basically poisoning your body. So for me, through the disease process, my house was filled with hospice folks. It's my sanctuary. And I really felt like I had to get away in the bottle.
Hmm.
So I was drinking margaritas, amaretto slushies, you name it, whatever sugary kind of drink. And okay, yeah, I was using agave nectar and making skinny margaritas, right, Carly? But I'd have two or three a night and big slushies. And then I'd, do the next night. It would be two or three that night and on and on and on for every night just to medicate. And it wasn't healthy. And, I was lucky that right after my wife passed, I really had an epiphany of willpower and said I needed to be lucid for my kids. I needed to be lucid and really feel this. And I had to stop medicating. And I did that. I had support in some of the people around me to help support that, and just cold turkey stopped alcohol and haven't had a drop in 5 years. What I noticed was some significant changes where in the beginning, it wasn't the whole hangover highs and lows that you experience because, okay, you might be medicating that night, but in the morning you're waking up feeling like trash. We've all been there, right? So I started to be a little bit more even keel, which was great, need to be through this process. The other thing I noticed, though, was that my metabolism was changing. I wasn't drinking and then grabbing a bag of chips and salsa to finish it off to go along with the margarita at night, right? So now all of a sudden I'm not eating those carbs and I'm not eating them late and I'm not eating all that sugar late. And all of a sudden my gut biome kind of started to heal and my metabolism boosted. And as part of this journey, I wound up losing, and you didn't know me before, Carly, but I was a good 60 pounds heavier, if not 70 pounds heavier. It was a dramatic change. And I was working out during that time. But, between the stress and the cortisol and being able to get off of that and getting off of the alcohol, but the alcohol was the big change that I made. And just going off of that. And so do you have to stay 5 years sober? Well, no. But I think for anyone who's going through this, try a couple of weeks, try a month. See if you can feel the changes. And for me, what happened is I committed to do that. I didn't say, okay, that's it. I'm never going to have another drink for the rest of my life. But I committed for sobriety for a little while. And it had a huge impact so quickly. And the results were so good. I'm like, oh, let me continue this. This is working. And then another month, oh, let me continue it. It's working. So let's pivot to gut biome. We've mentioned it a few times. So what the heck is the gut biome for those who don't know? Because I didn't know when I first started this journey. In fact, it wasn't until a couple of podcasts that I began to learn this from Dr. Gundry and some others. I definitely got my gut biome tested, which was a big help. And so I know what to eat and what not to eat. But what is the gut biome and why do we need to be mindful of it?
Yeah, so the gut biome really is what we're now calling our second brain. 80% of our immune system lies in our gut, which is pretty crazy when you think about it. And it is the regulator for so many important physiological functions. So I feel like when people first hear the word gut, they think digestive system, like bowel movement, right? But the gut is so much more than that. It's really the microflora, the balance of good and bad bacteria in your intestinal tract that has the power to really control and change how you feel and function throughout your day. And like I mentioned earlier, there's so much research coming out now about the connection between the gut and the brain and mental health and wellness, and just how many hormones are produced in our gut. And all of this is tied back to, again, that balance of good and bad bacteria. And it's important to have both, but it's also important to feed that good bacteria with the right kind of food so that it can really help you feel like you're thriving and not just surviving throughout your day.
Yeah, eat poorly and the bad bacteria, quote unquote, that make you not feel in a good mood and could even put you in depression, affects your sleeping, right? Because that gut is tied through the venal vagus nerve back up to your middle brain, and your middle brain is where all of your hormones are produced. And then there are some that are definitely produced in the gut and other parts of the body, but it is really that central system that controls that trigger that then causes the production. The feeling, the term gut feeling comes from that, right? You have a gut feeling. It's actually your gut responding through your venal vagus nerve up to your hormonal system in the middle brain, the limbic system, and it's driving key hormone production, whether that be your amygdala, your fight or flight system, your serotonin and melatonin production in your pituitary gland. All of those things are related. So it is a governor in your system. And if you put bad fuel into that system, it's going to cause the bad bacteria to be sparked up, and it's going to cause you discomfort. It's going to cause you mood changes, and it's going to just put you deeper into that sadness and that depression. Change your diet so that you're fueling the good bacteria. For me, that was first getting rid of the alcohol, which was promoting really bad things in my gut. And immediately my mood changed and shifted. For other people, that may be the simple carbs that they get rid of. I know those affect my mood dramatically, not just my inflammation. And so there are ways to just experiment with this. If you eat food and all of a sudden you're bloated, likely your gut is having a reaction to it, and it's not a good reaction. My daughter suffers from that dramatically. She had viruses and other things in her gut because she had a parasite and had to take a lot of antibacteria medicine, antibiotics that basically killed a lot of her good gut flora. And so she has bad gut flora. She's got some viruses that are in there, and they react to food that she loves, like broccoli and cauliflower, to where she's got a big food baby after she eats that. And it's uncomfortable, and it really does dramatically affect her mood. So what can you do? Well, you can experiment. Cut out some foods that you think are bothering you and see how your mood changes. And it's amazing. If you run these tests, you can really determine a lot of what you should and shouldn't be eating. There are rather inexpensive tests now that you can get. Naveen Jain has one with his company called Biome, Victor, IOME. And that's the one that I use. Carly, have you done a gut biome test for yourself?
I haven't. I just started kind of diving more into testing to just kind of get a good overview of where my health is at in general. So that is definitely one that's been on my list for a long while. And I think that it's so intriguing that we can, really dive into our health that specifically. And I think it's important to note too that our gut microbiome is always changing, right? So when you do these kind of testing, I think it's important to continue to do them over time because it's always changing. That balance is always changing. And so, what worked for you 2 years ago might need to be adapted a little bit, now 2 years later. So it's kind of staying on top of your health. And if you are someone that really likes to dive into the testing and really increase your knowledge in that way, just kind of keeping up with it too, is a really great way to just keep fine tuning your health from the inside out. And then, when it comes to feeding our gut, there's a couple of just kind of blanket food groups that are really good for optimal gut health, and that's fermented foods. So yogurt, things with probiotics or taking a probiotic, sauerkraut, miso, uh, prebiotic foods like artichokes, foods that are full of fiber. And then, I always encourage people to just get back to the basics. Make sure you're getting a variety of food, eating the rainbow. And like you said, you can have reactions to foods that are even quote unquote good for you. You mentioned your daughter having a reaction to cruciferous foods. That's the broccoli, cauliflower, kale family. That's actually, it's a really healthy group of foods. It helps fight cancer, but some people don't tolerate those well, and that's okay. Don't feel like you have to eat something just because you know it's good for you. Really, get in tune with your body and how it's reacting to food so that you can find what works for you.
Yeah, and Carly, that gets to the next question I have for you. So, I'm talking about my goodness in my eating and my drinking and things like that. But one of the things that I suffer from is that I'm really diligent about what I eat, but I'm kind of pressed for time sometimes. So as a result, I tend to lack any diversity in my diet. Literally, I eat the same things every day. And I know those things I don't react to badly, right? So they're good for my gut and I feel good after I eat them. But literally, unless I go out to eat, what I'm eating at my home has zero diversity, zero variety.
Yeah, I think it can be really easy to get stuck in a rut with what we're eating at home, especially if it's just you at home. Maybe you're an empty nester, or maybe it was your loved one that passed away, your partner in life. Maybe your kids are out of the house, or you never had kids, so it's just you at home. That's how it is for me right now, and it's really easy to get stuck in the same pattern of eating the same thing over and over, and also feeling like not feeling this level of pressure to make all this different kind of food, and then you're only one person, so you can only eat so much, and then a bunch goes to waste at the end of the week. So I think that just keeping in mind, again, eating different colors when you're at the grocery store, stocking up on fruits and vegetables, picking foods that are on a different color spectrum of the rainbow is a good way to get variety. Or maybe switching up what you get week to week. Instead of focusing on getting variety in your day, maybe just focus on getting variety over weeks moving forward. So if you got a handful of fruit this week, maybe you get a different kind of fruit the next week and kind of switch it up that way too. If you are going out to eat, the build your own bowl places are becoming really popular, and a great way to find healthier options out there and get a good variety in your diet. But I think most importantly, just getting back to the basics and getting unprocessed, focusing on those whole nutrients is really going to make the biggest game changer in your diet. I myself love to switch it up with smoothies. So I
Hmm.
typically have one smoothie in my day. It's a great way to get a complete healthy meal on the go that's easy to digest because the blender has kind of already done some of the work for you. So in my smoothie, always goes a handful of greens, and then I can switch up the fruits, whatever I have on hand, freezing, fruit that's going to go bad and keeping it in the freezer for when I make my smoothies. And then some protein, whether with yogurt or a clean protein powder, and then healthy fats. And I like to switch that up too. So I always have a couple of different nut butters on hand, like almond butter or cashew butter. You could put a little bit of avocado in there, some cinnamon. So that's a really great way to switch up your nutrients as well, and an insurance policy to making sure that you're getting a balanced, complete meal.
Yeah, and protein as well. So one of the
Right.
things that you provide is a great service where you've got pre-prepped meals, right, that are available. Talk about that a little bit, and services like yours. Doesn't have to be a pitch for FitLiving Eats, but
Yeah.
talk about how people leverage that kind of pre-made service to help fill in the blanks and the gaps to get that diversity.
Yeah, I mean, we're all busy, right? We're always on the go. There's always something we could be doing, or we find ourselves short on time and energy at the end of the day when we should be going to the grocery store or making our dinner. So those prepared meal options out there are a really great way to fill in the gaps of those times where you're feeling like you're behind. So whether it's my company, we offer really customized meal prep for clients. So it's catered specifically to individual needs, really more like we are your private chef, matching that with our healthy food options to set you up for success. But there's a lot of offerings and different options out there depending on where you live. There's local places, there's also places that ship nationwide. Um, I partner with Puff and Stuff here in Orlando and in Tampa, where you can order one individual meal or you can order 20. It doesn't matter through Heirloom, their meal delivery service, and get that delivered to your door. So again, I don't know that I would necessarily recommend relying on all prepared food as your source of energy in your day and your week, but definitely keeping a handful of options on hand from a source that is going to be nutritious and fresh is a great way to alleviate some of that pressure throughout the week, feeling like you have to make everything from scratch at home in order to be your healthiest.
Well, Carly, one of the things I want you to do is keep me honest on the diversity piece with it in my diet, because that is what I really need to work on. I've done so well in so many other areas, and I'm just like, I'm not going to beat myself up over it because I think I'm doing well, but I definitely have to get those fruits, the vegetables, the variety in weekly. So, and that brings me to another point is many of us have children. Some of them are home. Mine are away for some of the year, and then they come back with a whirlwind from school. And then we got to not only worry about our own meals, but now I've got these two other little ones here in the house. How do we kind of make sure that our families are served well by what we're doing in the food area? And then also talk about the therapy of cooking and the therapy of kind of eating together and how important that is that we've kind of gotten away from, right?
Yeah. So I talked earlier about how changing my diet really shifted mindfulness in other areas of my life. I'll never forget, I read an article probably 5 years ago now that talked about the practice of cooking as being an active form of meditation. And
Mhm.
I loved that because I'm not gonna lie, I struggle with traditional forms of meditation, sitting somewhere for 10, 5, 10, 20 minutes with no stimulation. And so sometimes I don't, I'm not able to fit that into my day. But I do know that when I create space for cooking a delicious meal that does not have to be complicated. It can be really simple, but just having something to focus on with your hands and kind of get yourself out of your mind a little bit is a really great form of meditation. So I love that connection back to cooking, and something that a lot of us kind of perceive as stressful can actually be very meditative as well. And I think that when you have kids at home, you may not feel like making something just for yourself, but I think it's really important to pass on that habit and way of connecting with others around the table within your own family too. So many of my memories from growing up are with my mom, spent cooking in the kitchen. And then, most nights we're sitting around the table. And again, it didn't have to be something really complicated. It could be simple and kind of semi-homemade. But that connection with each other and that space outside of the busyness of the day is such a good way to connect and spend time with those that you love, friends and family.
Yeah. So one of our widower brothers, David, his wife was an IBM saleswoman, and then packed it all in and said, you know what? I love to cook. I'm going to go and do this for a living. And so she cooked. And then David did lose her too soon. But one of the things that he does is he breaks out her recipes, and he'll invite a couple of friends over. He doesn't have kids, and he'll cook a meal, and he'll do it as a mode of therapy and a mode of remembrance. And I love that. And I think there's definitely something there, if you had that special meal that your wife would prepare, or she's got those recipes, grab the kids and take a run at it. Even if it doesn't come out well, I think there's an honor to that, and a respect and a remembrance that you'll be able to, they'll treasure that. So absolutely love that. All right. So Carly, I've got you here. I'm going to go through some of the things that I've done, and I want to get your opinion on these. And please don't pull any punches on me. All right. So you talked about the alcohol. Is that a check? Is that a good one? Giving up the alcohol?
That's a great one. In fact, it's one of the immediate benefits my clients see, along with incorporating the healthy food that they're getting from us in their week. When they limit their alcohol consumption, it's like the two can tango together, and it makes sense. And you can really get a lot of positive benefit from that. So there's a huge benefit to reducing or eliminating alcohol in your diet, definitely.
All right. So one of the things I do, let's start with my morning. First thing I absolutely do, squeeze a whole lemon in it and have a glass of lemon water. First up, before anything else goes in my body. Good?
I love that. I aspire to that. You're doing better than I am. But we get so dehydrated overnight. And having that glass of water, if you have lemon in it, if it's warm, even better. It kind of helps get our system waking up, and detoxing naturally from the get-go is a great way to start the day.
Awesome. It does give me a boost of energy. I have noticed that. And that was, again, probably one of those first or second day things I did after Judy passed. I was looking for, almost right away, I made that pivot of, okay, I got to get my act together, and that was a big one that kind of helped me to do something positive. Like one little positive step forward sometimes can be that catalyst to taking more steps. And that lemon water and being consistent with it for now 5 years has been a huge improvement. All right. I gotta say too, before you move on, which kind of goes along with your next point I think you're going to make, starting those changes in the morning specifically is a really great way to set your day up for success, because once we get going in our habits throughout the day, it's really hard to divert the other way and try and make positive change. So if we can make that positive change from the get-go, it's just going to help make everything else throughout your day feel that much more smooth and fluid. Yeah, love it. Then I follow up with, used to be a lot of coffee. Like we're talking 8, 9, I mean, maybe even more, Carly. It was really bad. I don't do anything halfway.
That's a lot.
So I realized that was bad. So I did give it up, and I now follow it up with tea, which is probably a lot better for me, right? Especially like 1 cup of coffee probably isn't bad, but 8, 9.
That's a lot, especially when you are going through such a trying time that is filled with grief and or anxiety and or stress. It really does a number on our body as a whole and our adrenals. So
Mm-hmm.
when you reinforce that with a significant amount of caffeine, it's just your body is never able to settle. So definitely, if not for, permanently, just kind of short term to get yourself back on a healthier track, reducing or cutting out caffeine can be a really great way to kind of realign and reset your baseline for then moving forward.
Yeah, Michael Pollan's book, Caffeine, changed me. That was the one that was like, you know what? This is a drug just like the alcohol was, and I need to get off of it or at least reduce it. And for me, it's either all or nothing. So I'm like, that's it, no more.
Yeah.
I also, what made the tea really palatable and what kind of replaced for me some of the energy boost was I don't just have tea, but I put a few drops, and I don't do a whole tablespoon or even a teaspoon, but a few drops of MCT oil in each tea that I make for myself. Now, I have quite a few cups of tea during the day. I'm not going to say how much. But bullet tea, MCT oil, Mary Catherine Tom oil, MCT oil. The few drops gives me a big boost of energy. And I know it's promoted some additional weight loss for me in a very positive way, has helped lean me out that next level. I think puts me in keto sooner, and I've heard some studies about that. Boosts the amount of mitochondria I have per cell. So I can almost feel like my body, like the heat from the inside and the energy boost that I have. Are you a fan of MCT oil? Do you do it yourself? I literally call it my secret elixir.
Yeah. It's really funny you bring this up because this is a great example of how our health and wellness is so individualized and individualistic. I tried really hard to get into the bulletproof movement, and where they're putting, healthy fats into coffee and blending it up, and it's creamy and frothy and delicious. And every time I did that, I would get a really bad headache. I don't know if that would happen to me if I were just putting MCT and say some tea. But that's where, again, what works for one person might not work for the next person. But that aside, MCT is essentially a saturated fat. When we think of saturated fat, we oftentimes think of the unhealthy fat. But MCT is a medium chain triglyceride, which is different than short chain triglycerides, which is typically the kind of saturated fat we're getting from animal sources that we want to kind of reduce in our diet. And a lot of times people think that, with weight loss, they need to cut out fat from their diet, and that's not the case. Fat helps you burn fat. So getting a little bit of fat throughout your day is really critical for overall health and well-being. So it's not surprising that you've experienced these positive benefits from putting some MCT in your multiple cups of tea throughout the day.
And Carly, I did find too that when I put the bigger dose in, like they want you to do the tablespoon and do it once, that gave me a headache. And so it was that kind of big dosing to that level all at once that I can't take. And so it's literally just a couple of drops in each one. And I'm probably getting a tablespoon, which is 70% of the fat that I need for the day. So you have to be careful after that in terms of how much fat that you're putting in your diet. But it has been a big boost. Now, the other thing it's helped me to do is I like to intermittent fast. And it did help me to fast better because it satiates you, because it's fat, right? I skip breakfast almost every day. And sometimes lunches too. And I just kind of eat when I'm hungry. And some days, if I worked hard, if I did a 2-a-day workout the day before and really hit it, I find I need lunch. But sometimes I can skip all the way to dinner and or close to it and not really feel anything. What's your thoughts on intermittent fasting?
I think out of all of the different dietary theories out there, intermittent fasting is one of the better ones. Because it's not necessarily controlling what you're eating, it's more controlling when you're eating and giving
Mhm.
yourself boundaries around that. So even with my clients, when they have focused on weight loss and they incorporate intermittent fasting, they're really successful. And I find that it's a more sustainable change that you can make versus trying to follow a specific dietary way.
Mhm.
So I think that it works really well for a lot of people. And to your point of kind of eating when you're hungry, I think that's awesome. And again, a way to be very intuitive into your body and understanding it and nourishing it when it needs that nourishment. I do think that sometimes when we are going through a lot of stressors, it suppresses our appetite. So there may be times where you don't feel like eating, but you probably should be eating because you need some energy to keep you going throughout the day. But generally speaking, being in tune with your body and listening to it and eating when you're hungry and stopping when you're full and eating more slowly, chewing your food, putting your fork
Mhm.
down in between bites, all of those things can just lead to overall mindfulness around food and your diet and your habits throughout the day.
Yeah, and don't torture yourself. I think that's what you're saying too, is, these diets can get obsessive, right? And you swing
Mhm.
from one way to another. I know there was a long period of time where I swung from diet to diet and it didn't work, or it had a temporary impact and it wasn't sustainable. And what I've fallen into here for me is sustainable. And so hopefully
Yeah.
through experimentation, those listening can find that out too. Caloric intake and what you're intaking. So there's a lot of people that say, okay, it doesn't matter the fasting, it doesn't matter what you eat, it's the calories and counting the calories. And then there are others that say, no, it definitely matters. If you're doing a lot of the simple carbs, if you're, or the opposite, if you go in keto, and even if you're eating a lot more calories, but it's more keto oriented diet, that's a good thing. Where do you fall on the whole carb, no carb kind of keto thing first? And then
Mhm.
how important is calorie counts? Because that's been
That's a
revived
great
lately.
question.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, first, in regards to keto, which is essentially a very high fat diet, very low carb diet, moderate protein, the goal is to get into ketosis. And what that means is your body shifts from getting energy from carbohydrates to fats.
Mm-hmm.
People who have done the keto diet and done it well see a lot of benefits from it. I think that the keto diet was kind of originally created for epilepsy patients.
Mm-hmm.
So, in epilepsy patients, it will help reduce the amount of seizures that they're experiencing throughout the day, which I find so interesting. I do think that it is very challenging for just the average person to stay in ketosis. And
Mm-hmm.
if you're not into ketosis, then you're essentially just eating high fat food. So you're not getting the benefit of burning fat as fuel. You're still burning carbohydrates. And then on top of that, also getting a lot of fat into your diet. So if you're going to do it, just making sure you're setting yourself up for success. I know there's different testing strips and things like that that you can use to kind of gauge if you're in ketosis. And also kind of focusing on sliding into the second point of not just eating high fat food. I had a friend one time and he was telling me about his diet when he did the keto method. And for almost every meal, it would be ground beef, spaghetti sauce, and cheese. And
Oh,
I'm like, wait, where are the vitamins and minerals and where are the nutrients? But it worked
nothing
because it
green.
got him into that ketosis state. Yeah. But that's not necessarily going to be healthy for you long term, really short term either. But so focusing too on not just the numbers, but the quality of the food as well. So I think like with the whole calories thing, it's a balance between paying attention to overall calorie count, but then also being very mindful of what those calories are made of. You're going to feel significantly different if you eat a bagel than if you eat a egg scramble, and they both have the same amount of calories. So different nutrients, obviously, but really paying attention to the quality of those calories, and leaning into the more whole, unprocessed variety of colors, variety of foods is really going to help your body start to feel like it's thriving and not just surviving to get from one thing to the next.
Totally agree. Then there are supplements, right? So I do a multivitamin, probiotic. I do take nutrigenics, apple cider vinegar after most meals. I'll try to pop a couple of gummies with that. Any thoughts on the whole supplements area and any specific recommendations for kind of 40, 50, 60-year-old men?
Yeah, so I think first of all, it's important to not look at supplements as being your golden ticket to a healthy diet. It's really meant to do just that, to supplement your diet. So you can't have a green superfood drink once a day and then eat fast food for the rest of your meals and think that you're going to be healthy and experience these positive benefits. So I think first and foremost, focusing on a healthy diet and then pulling in these supplements as reinforcement can be a really great way to elevate your health. Unfortunately, no matter how healthy our diet is these days, the quality of our soil and just the way that produce is grown is not the same as it once was. So we're probably not getting all of the nutrients we need in our day anyways. So it is definitely a good thing to reinforce with a multivitamin. I do that. I take a multivitamin. I take fish oil, a probiotic, and I have a superfood green powder. It's athletic greens that I absolutely love, and take that more days than not. And I notice a big difference in my energy when I take it and when I don't take it. So I'm a big advocate for supplements. I think you can definitely go overboard with them, but incorporating some of those fundamentals into your day to support the healthy habits that you're adopting can be a really great thing.
Yeah, I think, Carly, what you're saying is if my reply to my daughters is, well, I take a multivitamin, I'm okay with not having the diversity. That's not good, right?
Right. Yeah. You focus on the food first, and then you've got the insurance policy with the vitamins.
All right. So another thing. So I'm disciplined. I'm not a saint. Let's see. Here's a good one. If there's Talenti pistachio gelato in the house, pretty much it's all mine. So is that the end of the world?
I don't think so. I actually think it's a good thing to indulge from time to time. If our goal is perfection, it is unachievable, and we're going to be disappointing ourselves and setting ourselves up for failure. So I think allowing yourself those moments of indulgence and those moments of enjoyment too around food is really important, just for our overall mental state as well. And kind of shifting away from thinking of food as being good or bad, but what food is going to help me feel my best? What food is going to nourish me? Okay, I want to focus on that food more consistently. And then the food that I know really isn't going to make me feel my best, but sometimes I just want, that little indulgence of Talenti pistachio ice cream. And not looking at that as being, a really bad thing, kind of helps break that cycle of we're doing really good and then we take a step backwards, or kind of always waiting for the Monday, right? Like, oh, Monday we're gonna make all these changes and cut out all these foods. And so I think that kind of shifting your mindset allows for a little bit more freedom and also sustainability in these changes you're looking to make down the road.
Yeah, I'm already going through a lot in the grief and the sadness and the trying to get the growth back kind of in our lives. So do not beat yourself up over it. You know, I try not to. I sometimes feel a little guilty over it. And I'm like, oh, now I'm just going to have to work out that much harder or make up for it. But you can give yourself some grace. Don't have it be a cycle of negative thoughts. If you have that cup of coffee, or, you go and you have that drink, or you go and you have that ice cream, it is okay. It's, as long as you're making progress, I think that's what counts to try to get yourself healed through this. So, Carly, what's the one piece of advice you'd like to leave our widowers, our growth warriors with today?
I think it's just reminding yourself that taking control of your health is an ongoing process. There's really no finish line. There's no end goal, and it's going to change over time as well. So kind of what I, mentioned just before, there is no such thing as perfection, and there's really just room for improvement. And we all have ways that we can improve, no matter where we're at on our journey. So I always like to remind people and kind of keep this quote in mind for myself too, of doing one thing for yourself today that's better than yesterday, that's going to get you closer to where you want to be tomorrow. Just one thing that's a little bit better than yesterday, that's going to get you a little bit closer to where you want to be tomorrow, and set yourself up for success moving into that new day. And keeping that in mind, it just reinforces the idea that change at a gradual pace, while it's not always desirable because we want that quick fix, we want that overnight success, that usually is not going to be sustainable for the long term. So kind of going at it more slowly and more patiently, and just doing what you can with where you're at is the most important thing that you can do for sustainable, healthy success.
Carly Paige, FitLiving Eats, thank you so much. We'll include your contact information in the transcript, so keep an eye for that in case you want to reach out to
Awesome.
Carly to get some more advice. And thank you so much.
You're welcome. This was so much fun. Thank you for having me.
And everyone, thank you so much for listening to our Growth Through Grief podcast. If you liked what you heard, please hit the like button. Be sure to subscribe to keep up to date on the latest episodes. We have a lot of them coming out. And until next time, my Growth Warriors, keep growing.